Vana was indescribably cheerful and virtually danced her way back to the cave, her tail wagging like an excited puppy. "That place looks wonderful," Vana said, performing a graceful flutter jump. Out of the cover of the trees, Samuel felt a light drizzle against his skin. The clouds had thickened during their walk. They sat back down in the cave, and 3 seconds later, the heavens opened and a torrent began to pour down. "Damn," Samuel said as water began to stream through the cave and flow down the steps. He rushed down and quickly moved the mattress out of the path of the newly forming river. When he got back up, Vana was curled up on her seat, keeping her feet out of the water and watching it flow by. "Aren't your feet soaked?" she asked, seeing him slosh through the water. "No, that's what these are for," she said, banging one of his boots against the wall. He stood there gazing out of the cave mouth, watching the rain smash into the ground. He found it all strangely hypnotic. As he did, he noticed that the raindrops were slowly beginning to fall inside the cave. The wind was changing, and soon the only dry spot would be right at the back where the wood was stored. "We have to go before we get soaked," Samuel said to Vana. "Go where?" Vana asked, already knowing the answer. Samuel gestured to the hole behind him, and Vana replied, "No, I'm not going down there." Samuel crouched down in front of her and said, "Why not? It's not because of me, is it?" Vana shook her head. She was about to answer, but Samuel had already figured it out. "You don't like enclosed spaces," he said. Vana looked at him and asked, "How did you know?" Samuel smiled and told her, "It just made sense that you had claustrophobia." He then added quickly, "That's the name of your problem." As he knew, she would ask what he meant. "Look, I know that it can be horrible dealing with a phobia. I don't like heights, but you can overcome it if you try," Samuel said as he placed his hand over hers. "I just don't want to go down," Vana replied. Suddenly, a great gust of wind blew a massive blanket of water over the pair and most of the cave. Vana squealed, and Samuel shouted, "Bloody hell!" As far as Samuel was concerned, nature had decided for them and pulled Vana off her stone and took her towards the stays. Vana did not give much resistance. The sudden soaking had left her slightly stunned. He made one last quick dash outside to collect the salve. Samuel was about to slide the slab back into place, but Vana grabbed his arm and said, "Please don't close it." Samuel looked into her eye and replied, "Okay," and stepped away from the steps. Vana's breathing became rapid and shallow while she appeared to be buckling under her own weight. "Vana, look at me." "Okay," he said as gently as he could and held her hand. She was far too focused on her panic, so Samuel gently held her face and turned it to face his. "Vana, now here's what we're going to do. You will hold my hand as tightly as you can and follow me down the corridor," he said firmly. "But," Vana interrupted, "now, if you feel uncomfortable or scared, just say I'm fine as long as I hold Samuel's hand." Vana nodded, and Samuel began to lead her to the cavern. "It will get better when we get to the end," he reassured her. She did not answer. All Samuel could hear her say was, "I'm fine as long as I hold his hand." With his vision cut off, he was focusing more intensely on his other senses, primarily his touch. Vana's hand was as smooth as polished marble without a single dent or scratch, but most incredible were her joints. They were soft and supple, almost identical to a kitten's foot pads. Vana complained about how dry her mouth was becoming, so he handed her his canteen, though this required him to let go of her hand, which caused her to grab hold of him. Samuel let out a little yelp. Vana had not touched his shoulder, but she was not holding back her strength. With just a little more force, she would have broken his ribs. "Let go! You're crushing me!" Samuel wheezed. Vana realized what she was doing just in time and lessened her grip. He was finally able to hand her his canteen, and after she was done, they moved further down the dry room. Several minutes later, Samuel asked, "How are you holding up?" "Better than I thought, worse than I had hoped," she replied, the stress flowing from her voice. "Don't worry, not much longer now," he reassured her. A familiar blue glow appeared up ahead, and Vana asked, "What's that?" "That is my home," Samuel replied. As soon as they left the corridor, Vana let out a gasp that echoed throughout the cavern. She was left speechless by its beauty. "You live here," she was finally able to say. "Why? What were you expecting? A muddy hole?" Samuel replied, "I do have some class," he added, Samuel let her explore and answered any questions she had. Most of them were focused on the ceiling. As she entertained herself, Samuel took care of himself. He had a quick drink and rubbed more salve onto his shoulder. He experimented and found that it had significantly improved just 1 or 2 more days, and he would be in perfect health. He lay his sling down beside his other fabrics, feeling that he no longer needed it, and let his arm hang by his side. Symmetrical once again, Samuel said to himself. He took off his boots and socks, walked to the pool, rolled up his trousers and soaked his feet. After about 5 minutes, Vana sat beside him and dipped her feet in the water as well. It's so warm, she said. Why is it warm? Vana asked with genuine curiosity. Samuel did not know exactly, but he had a theory. I think it's a geothermal spring, which means it is heated by... Samuel paused as he thought of how to word it. Very hot rock underneath the ground, which flows up from a crack in the bottom, he said while pointing to the pool floor. Vana got that, but she had another question. What heats the rock? Samuel chuckled and replied, I think that the weight of the rock above it keeps it hot. How? Vana asked. Samuel shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. I'm not a physicist. Vana pulled a face and then screamed and leapt away, water trailing behind her. What's wrong? Did the water get too hot? Samuel asked nervously, Vana's stunt having startled him. She sat on one of the ledges, rubbing her right foot's toes, or claws, depending on how you judge them, and said, Something bit me. Before Samuel could even put 2 and 2 together, Samuel felt one of the fish start nibbling on his own feet. Samuel burst out laughing, harder and louder than he had done in years. To imagine that the very person who had charged headfirst into the monster of her childhood could be so easily startled was just magnificent. What's so funny? Vana shouted, annoyed by his lack of concern. However, Samuel could not answer. He was laughing too hard, so hard in fact that not even the complaints of his shoulder could stop him. He just pointed at the pool and started to slap his hands on the stone. She carefully edged closer to the water, growing ever more irritated with his laughing. As she reached the edge, she could see the pale bodies suspended in the water. At first, she thought they were maggots. Yet, as she looked closer, she could clearly see their fins and distinctive heads. Vana looked at Samuel and said, with no amusement, You could have said there were fish in there. Samuel's laughter had been restrained to a deep chuckle, and he was able to say, Even if I had known you would do that. Samuel then did a little hand wave to imitate her freak-out. I would still not have told you. It was just too precious. Vana scowled at him and said, You really are a monster. Samuel kept smiling and said, Yes, you have discovered my evil plan. As Vana looked at Samuel, she found his chirpy face infectious, and she started to smile as well. She sat back down beside him. Why do they nibble your toes? Vana asked. They're after your toe jelly, Samuel replied. That's disgusting, she responded. Samuel nodded his agreement and said, But it's true. Then Vana yawned, and it was infectious because Samuel followed. He lifted himself up and collected the mattress. After he had flattened it out, Samuel lay down on it. Where am I gonna sleep? Vana asked, standing beside the bed. Samuel opened his eyes and patted the spot next to him. I can't sleep there. Vana cried out. Samuel looked at her, confused. Why not? He asked. Vana blushed slightly. Because you're and I'm She found she was unable to finish the sentence. Samuel sighed and said, I'm not going to eat your guts. Humans don't do that. Vana shook her head and said, That's not what I mean. Then there's no problem, is there? He replied once again, patting the feathers. Now, lie down, because I'm tired, and I can't be bothered to run all the way to the village through that flood and steal you your own mattress. That was all Samuel was going to say, so he reclined once again and shut his eyes. Vana kept pacing, thinking about whether she should or not, but in the end, the memory of how fantastic the mattress had been last night won out. Slowly, she lay down next to him. Samuel did not move an inch. Vana could not be sure whether he was asleep or just trying as hard as to doze off. While she tried to get herself comfortable, Vana thought about the promise Samuel had made to her earlier. She did not know how he could make an entire village change their opinions like that, but she did feel that if anyone could do it, it was him. Vana then chuckled in her head. Why was she putting so much faith into a person she had just met? She turned her head to look at Samuel. He